Hi, this is Daniel from Raunow Consulting. Today I'm going to show you a few tricks to deal with complex pipeline structures in Azure Data Factory. Sometimes it can be the case that you're going to have a very convoluted structure of pipelines that are invoking other pipelines and other activities, and it can be very hard to actually figure out what's going on with just the pipeline monitor and data factory. So I'm going to show you how you can actually get an overview of what exactly is going on and what the steps are by using the logs from Data Factory and Power BI. So to get started, I'm going to try and show you what I mean. You can see here that I've made a mock pipeline here. I've called it master pipeline, and you can see that it's executing two separate pipelines. And if I were to actually open this one, you can see it's executing other pipelines, and you can imagine how this type of setup can get very, very complex. So we're going to see how we can actually get a full picture of what's going on. To start off, we're going to use the Data Factory logs. So the first thing you will have to do, or make sure that it's already done, is in your Data Factory under monitoring, under diagnostic settings, you have to have a diagnostic setting configured. And of course, you're going to need a log analytics workspace to actually store the logs. You can see I have this already configured. If I go to edit setting, of course you can save it to storage accounts as well. I'm sending it to the log analytics workspace, and you can see here that I'm recording the pipeline activity, pipeline runs, and the trigger runs. So now if we go back, we can go to the logs, and you can see here that I already have the tables here. If I query this table, you can see that it's already giving me the runs of my pipelines. I'm going to use a custom query here because we don't actually need everything that this is giving us. So basically, I'm just going to look at the pipelines that succeeded, and I'm just going to keep these three columns. So if I run this, you can see I get this. If we scroll down to pipeline 1, I have a run ID here, and also I have this predecessors JSON. That's a bit complicated, but basically what we're actually really interested in here is the invoked by. You can see here what by type, what invoked it, and the run ID. So to start off, we're actually going to export this as a Power BI M query, and we can just copy this, and if we go to Power BI, go to transform data, we can just put this in as a blank query and just post it into the advanced editor. And we will name this pipeline runs. Okay, so as you can see here, I have this predecessors column that I will need to process. I'm not going to go through the processing steps right now. I have already made up the query. Basically, we're interested in getting this table into a shape where we can actually see what is invoking what. And you can see here now that I have a pipeline and an invoked by with their IDs. Now we're also going to want to have the triggers. So if I go back to the analytics workspace and run a new query for just the triggers, we're going to get our trigger runs, and we're just going to paste it in here. Something I would like to draw your attention to in the actual JSON document query, there is here a time span. I'm just running it for the last 24 hours, but of course if you have a system where you have pipelines only running on certain days of the week or the month, you may want to put this higher. I think you can go as high as 31 days. I'm not 100% sure about that. Okay, here we are just going to remove our duplicates, and also I will want to actually rename these two columns so that I can append it to our previous table. You will see why in a minute. And now we can not merge but append queries, and we will append it to our pipeline runs table. It seems I didn't remove the duplicates correctly. I should have removed it on the name. Yes, there we go. And also we're going to have to make a slight replacement here. I'll just say ADF. And for run ID, we will just say okay. And now the first thing I want to show you is how we can use an actual visual to get an overview of the pipelines. We'll just wait for the tables to load. There we go. Okay, and I should have here, we're going to use a custom visual. It's actually called A3 visual. This one from CK Corporation. It's free to use. Can add it. There we go. And now we can use this visual to show all of our runs. So we have a parent ID here, so this would be invoked by ID. Then we have the normal ID, so we're just going to use the run ID, and for the measure we're going to use the pipeline name. And you can see here that I only have one trigger. The trigger is showing, but if I expand this, I get the master pipeline. If I expand this further, we get the two pipelines that the master pipeline is triggering. Pipeline 2 is triggering two more pipelines, and so on. You get the picture. This route can actually be renamed in the visuals somewhere around here. If I could just find it. Yeah, there we go. You can just say ADF here, for example. And that's one way to actually view this. Another way is, let's say you would actually need to flatten this hierarchy, because what we basically have here is just a parent-child hierarchy. And maybe we actually need to flatten it to get a table view of what's actually going on here. So in order to do that, we're going to use a custom function that has been developed by James Pretorius over at Pivotal BI. You can see here it's dynamically flatten a parent-child hierarchy using Power Query. I'm not going to go through the function in very much detail. We're just, I'm just going to copy this into a new Power BI query. There we go. And now you see we have a custom function that we can actually use to flatten our hierarchy. So we will choose all the runs. The parent key, this is where we have to actually make sure we get the invoked by run ID. Well, yes, it seems to have worked. So now you can see here we actually have a flattened hierarchy for all of our pipelines. And if we would actually like to see all of the pipeline sequences, we can actually add a custom column and do something like this. We're just going to concatenate. There you have it. We're basically just concatenating all of these columns. And you can see here we're actually getting null values. This is something I should have done before. We're actually going to have to select all of these columns where we have the pipeline name and do a replace. And replace nulls with an empty string. And now I think I must have yeah, there we go. And you can see here we actually have an overview of all of the different pipeline sequences that we have in our data factory. One more thing I would like to mention, you can see we have this leaf level column. If we actually filter on this to be true, we're only going to get the full sequences wherever the last pipeline is not invoking a further pipeline. And of course you can play around with all of this to actually get a view of whatever you're interested in. So that is how we can deal with complex ADF scenarios. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you on the next video.